someone else, which is one of the big things. It's like, well, I train someone when I can do this myself. That's a big one. What else? I heard another one at the same time.
Same thing.
I cut you with a mouthful, so.
They can't do it as good as I can.
Exactly, a little bit of the perfectionist complex. It wouldn't be done my way. It would be done absolutely. Why else don't we delegate?
I think sometimes people are uncomfortable delegating, thinking they're being bossy or they're just not comfortable doing it.
Yeah, without clear lines of kind of demarcation, if I go, hey, can you help me out do my submittals? It's like, whoa, man, know your role, brother. You know, you need to stay in your lane and don't be telling me to do stuff. Now, if we're all doing it differently, that could lead to a little kind of, I call it sharp elbows, you know, or someone's meddling in your stuff. It's the other way. So other than being delegated to, it's, hey, wait a second, you know, you just do your own stuff. What else? I heard a couple things over here.
Some of us don't have anybody to delegate to.
You hit the nail on the head. If we are always the delegatee, it's really hard to delegate when you have no one to, you kind of turn around and you go, oh shoot, there's no one there, I guess I'll have to do it. That is definitely 100% of the situation. So your tree here becomes pretty easy. You either defer it or you do it. And that's where we kind of, yeah. Now, if it becomes too long, we have to continue to ask ourselves, should we have more resources? And that's a discussion for a different day. That's just an explanation of the do it, delegate it, defer it. Part of this process, though, that we should all be going through for any project is what we call the natural planning model. So the first question is the purpose of whatever project we're doing. And I know we don't always go through this very detailed structure like it's a science fair project. You know, what's the purpose? Why am I doing my monthly invoicing? Well, I mean, you do this like this. In some cases, they're snap decisions. On the other hand, putting together a proposal for a client does require a lot more thought. But however long this process is, or short or truncated, is going to be varied. But you know, what's the purpose? What is the vision? You know, and when we talked previously about leadership, a quick recap, great leaders set direction and vision. That's not to say what we want to be when we grow up. What defines success? Other than just, we want to get done with this project. Well, you can say, well, that's a measure of success. But I think there's a bigger picture there. We want to create a raving fan, like we talked about, and a loyal client for the next 20 years. We brainstorm. That's when we start to capture ideas. And we don't judge. We just simply come up with all the potential solutions. Much like Brad illustrated before, lunch, the idea of walking through all the potential things that we could have in our lessons learned library at Benning are the things that we should be kind of thinking it through, as well as some of the questions you had. Where do we get this information? How do we store this information? You may not have all the answers, but at least have that kind of discussion and brainstorming. How you organize your thoughts, and then most importantly, set up the plan. What is the action plan? What am I going to do, by when, and by how? For instance, the example I've used several times today is I want to be healthier. Once again, it sounds like a great goal, and you might all think that's a pretty neat thing to try. On the other hand, the question would be, well, what do I got to do to make that objective happen? Okay, well, maybe I need to join a gym. Maybe get a fitness coach. Maybe I need to learn how to use all that crap in the room next door. Maybe I need to get a dietitian, buy a pair of sneakers, hire a personal trainer. I mean, the list goes on and on. But those are the steps. A lot of people get caught up in the visioning part. And this is for any company or person. Some people stay at that top level, purpose and vision. We want to be the best company in all of Atlanta. Okay, how are you going to make it happen? Oh, we didn't really think that far through. That's where the rubber meets the road. How do we get this stuff done? So for all of our projects, you use this natural planning methodology, depending on the level of, if it's something, a very mundane task, like just simply generating an invoice, or something bigger, like I'm going to build a house. Okay, that's going to require a lot different level of planning. So when we talk about all right, there we go.
It's running.
The concept of time management. We're going to go through some very tactical elements right now, some of which I'm going to have to be able to show you on the computer. But first of all, we've said already, we're not managing time. The sands of the hourglass flow through, and it's like the old days of our lives. Now, important and urgency we've already established are not equal. They're not the same thing, nor can we live in a life that's always urgent and always important. Secondly, why do you think I say making quick decisions does not necessarily constitute good time management?
Because they make the wrong decision and do it quick and don't think through what the consequences.
The consequences, absolutely. Some people go, I'm very decisive, I make quick decisions, I don't belabor the point. On the other hand, their other end of that spectrum is what I call analysis paralysis. What's analysis paralysis?
You think way too much.
Yeah, a joke I heard one time was you ask someone the time and they tell you how the watch works.
Yeah.
We could do it this way, but we could do it this way. Oh no, and we just kind of keep getting wound around the axle. So neither is great time management. But some people think, well, I don't get kind of hung up in the analysis, I just make decisions. Some superintendents, for instance, I've worked with a few that, don't necessarily, they go, I'm just a snap decision kind of guy. That's okay, but understand there's consequences, and if you can live with those consequences, or do we need to kind of get more towards that midpoint? Prioritizing activities. Not every activity was created equal. However, I'm sure some of you had a task list today. Maybe some of you have a big chief legal pad, and you wrote, call John Smith, do invoice, write RFI, go to class, blah, blah, blah. And each one of those activities has an equal weight because they're just simply bullet points. But I think we would all realize that not all of those activities are equal. And in fact, probably 9 of those were what I'd call filler material. The one thing that you did on your list or didn't do on your list may have been the most important. So understand that we have to prioritize, and that's why I used the word before, triage. Because we could say, at the end of the day, well, I did 90% of my activities today, but technically today was a failure because the one thing I didn't do was the most important. So don't confuse checking the boxes. By the way, how many of you use kind of just a big chief legal pad to write your to-do list down? Anybody? How many of you use Outlook or some sort of like app? You're probably like me. I use Outlook religiously because it connects to my phone. How many of you that use the big chief legal pad will kind of write your activities down, and when you're kind of doing them, you check them off your list, but you do something that wasn't on your list, but you write it on your list and then cross it off. Does anyone ever do that?
Of course.
Exactly. It's that sense of accomplishment that you can see all that check mark activity. Once again, what's that? Cheater.
Yeah. Feel good about myself at the end of the day.
What if you write a bunch of stuff down and then lose the legal pad?
Right? You hope somebody that,
So, additionally, when we start talking about activities that involve other people, remember those other people's problems. Because there may be things that are important and they weren't urgent for you, but they became urgent for you, especially if we're delegating. The importance here is respectful of other people and their time. Also, not wasting our time doing things that other people should be doing. And I know this sounds like, oh, wait a second, so I'm going to give all my crappy jobs to people that don't want to do things? No, that's not what we're talking about. Everyone in here has a certain set of skills. That sounded like, was it Liam Neeson? I have a certain set of skills. Yeah. Each one of you, we hire you to be a superintendent, an administrator, an accountant, an estimator, to do said duties. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't kind of help out if someone needs help. But on the other hand, there are things that all of us probably do that we have no business doing. I know in my personal, life, when it comes to things at work, there are probably higher and best uses of my time, but because I like to do certain things. For instance, this is a business example, but I had one client who had a superintendent. That superintendent used to be a foreman, and that foreman used to be a carpenter. So when the rubber meets the road, what happens is that superintendent, and let's say one of his crew members comes up and says, "Hey boss, I'm having trouble, man. I can't make this thing work." No problem. He slaps on the tool belt and hops down in the hole and starts kind of doing wrenching and carpentering, I don't know if that's a word, fixing stuff. Meanwhile, the guy that was kind of working the hole is like, "All right, you got this." But once again, it's the things that he likes to do, not the things that he should do. Now you say, "Well, Greg, so that superintendent shouldn't help?" No, but if I'm the captain of the ship and I spend all my time in the engine room, what's going to happen when, unfortunately, no one's up at the helm and we hit an iceberg? So the idea was, let's make sure and this going back, I know you all thought it was funny when I said stay in your lane, bro. We got to stay in our lane. Let's trust that our linemen are going to be linemen, our wide receivers will wide receive, running backs will running back, and the quarterback will be the quarterback. But if all of a sudden I'm doing everything, that becomes a little more complicated. And then lastly, challenging the status quo. What Brad did before lunch was that. We've done things at Benning a long time, a certain way. Some of those things are exactly what we should be doing. There are other things that, to be honest with you, I'll tell you straight up, they're bad. And I don't mean that as a knock to you guys. It means you guys need to challenge each other regularly and say, how do we do this better? And that's what I mean by challenge the status quo. And every client I work with has things they got to fix. The best part, though, is you all are doing that. You are working on the solutions. Some people just say, hey, that's the way we've been since 1952. You guys are finding ways to do things differently when it comes to processes and employee development and growth and things like that, and that's a healthy thing. So, why is this not working now? So I got a little exercise for it. I want you to take a couple minutes. This is a very simple one, but there are activities around this. I call shuffling the deck. And I want you to look at these, 6 items around this diagram. And I want you just to put numbers, what you would do first, what you would do sixth. And I also realize that everyone in this room is coming from a different place in the organization. You might go, I don't even do that type of thing, Greg, so that's number 6 on my list. That's okay. But what I want you to do is think about this, also the why. So think about the urgency and importance, and then the prioritization. So take just a minute, should take a couple seconds to go 1 to 6. 1 is the first thing you do, 6th is the thing you do the least.